This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today, we're going to be talking about Mark Cuban. And we talked about him a bit before, but some of his tweets about hiring practices and DEI, and he keeps defending it, but he's defended it to the point where it looks like he may be violating the Civil Rights Act, because you're really not supposed to discriminate against people based on their race, even if it's in service of, I don't know, picking more black people or etc. It's still racist the other way around. We don't even have to say reverse racism. We can claim it as regular racism. So we'll be talking about that. Also, there's a lot of debate about Taylor Swift and if she's some kind of big psyop. And this is a thing that lots of people on the right are really leaning into and so on. And look, it's no secret, I think, that people really want celebrities to be able to convince people to vote Democrat. And it's nothing that's new, but really, honestly, if Beyonce couldn't make Hillary Clinton the president, because they had a big concert, I think, right at the height of the election, I don't think Tay Tay is going to be able to do much for Biden. So I think ultimately people will make their own decisions. But anyway, we'll talk about that. Also, this is kind of breaking news in the entertainment world, I suppose. But Variety reported on reported last night, that Netflix's live action Avatar cartoon, which many people are looking forward to, commercials look decent. That they're going to edit out some of Sokka's sexism or tone it down. And people are upset about that, not because we love sexism, but they're upset about it because it was part of his character arc. And I don't know, people don't seem to be able to understand the difference between descriptive versus prescriptive, and that just because something is in something doesn't mean that the society is lifting it up, that the writers are lifting it up, that we should be like, no, that's a good thing. No, he literally learns his lesson. He's literally humbled all the time. So it's pretty crazy to me. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream, room, my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support in that way. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. If you're watching back later, you guys can send super thanks. Check out different merch like mugs and t-shirts and so on at the shop. I do also have different books that I've written that you guys can check out. If you just search my name on Amazon, you'll find me. But if you go to Black Tea News on the merchandise page, there's a link. They'll take you to my book website. I have 17 books that are published right now. So go ahead and check out some of my inventory. I do have something, I suppose, that's a bit humorous. We talked about Joy Reid, I think it was earlier this week, and or maybe it was last week, and I've been posting clips on my social medias about it, but about the book stuff. But she made a boo-boo the other night, hot mic situation, so just FYI, there's some language.
Over the weekend, President Biden said he's ready to take action if Congress is serious about solving the border issue.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. And Congress needs to get it done.
Starting another fucking war.
So she did come back up and apologize. She did apologize. And but she just really apologized for the language and was kind of laughing about it. She was like, this was an off like can conversation. And, we were this is a PG show, so I'm sorry about the language because we do try to keep PG-13 or whatever. So yeah, I wonder what all these people are saying behind closed doors about their feelings with Biden, and I would assume she's talking about Biden and starting another war, as far as like what kind of retaliation there will be for our troops being killed by a drone strike in Jordan. So I don't know how all that's going to break down. We talked about that yesterday, my concerns about it and so on. But they have concerns about that. I'm sure they have concerns about his age and his mental capabilities, and whether he's going to be able to bring the coalition of Democrats together to overcome Trump. I'm sure that they have a lot of concerns. By the way, people on the right have concerns about Trump as well. People don't say as much as maybe as plainly and bluntly as they like to, because one, ideology. Two, people don't want to upset their audiences, and also money. They know, like on the right, a lot of situations might be like they don't want to tick off their audience because they know who butters their bread. So if you could be a fly on the wall in some of these places, I'm sure you'd hear a lot of colorful language like that all the time, I'm sure. But that was making the rounds. They are probably not very confident in Joe, one, but also probably pretty upset. Some of them are probably upset. I don't know how much at, like, I don't know, CNN, but MSNBC, there's a lot of radical kind of people over there. Probably don't appreciate a lot of his responses, especially with the caliber of people that they bring on the show to lend commentary. They're kind of nutty over there. Anyway, I want to start off with this Mark Cuban story. So Mark Cuban has been defending DEI a lot, and we've talked about that before. But he's defending it to a point that is probably not so good, because he's kind of telling on himself quite a bit. He's really telling on himself. And so he's been going back and forth with this dude, the rabbit hole guy, about his I guess we'll look at this, go back and look at their thread a bit. Because they've been going back and forth for a while. And eventually someone in the government actually got involved. So Mark Cuban has been talking about, like, oh, you start a company, and then you realize that all of your employees are white men, and you decide as CEO you want, in order for profitability to grow the company, has to further diverse perspectives, and you decide to hire the most qualified African American woman you can find. And they asked, are you good with this? And let me pull this up so you guys can see what I'm seeing. I understand where their heart is at, but I understand where their heart is at, but you can't start discriminating against people. And he eventually got to the point where he kind of admitted that's what he's doing. He's like, you decide to find the most qualified African American woman you can find. Good idea with this. He's like, if you mean specifically seeking out members of certain demographics to fill a role, then no. If you mean you ignore demographics during the process, and the most qualified person happened to be of certain demographics, African American woman in your example, then yes, colorblind meritocracy should be the goal. Like I've been telling you, the issue with DEI is that it does the former, not the latter. See my attached reply for more information. That's an interesting point. Like, if you hired the best people and they all came out to be white for your company or whatever, like, I don't know, is it a problem if they're still kind of producing the kind of results that you want for your bottom line? Or do people like look at a room and they're just like, In the words of a reporter I once heard on the news, it was overwhelmingly white. And just automatically think there's something inherently racist, inherently wrong, inherently immoral about seeing a group of white kids or not white kids, but white adults and whatever. Was there some kind of original racist, I don't know, practices within your hiring that made the room so white, or are there other sort of factors that led to that? So let's go back and see what his response was. So let's turn around. You're a CEO of a successful company that has 30 employees that are all Black women, and you think a different perspective will help you grow the firm. So you decide you want to hire a white man. You would be against that, right? And they said, I also answered this earlier. My argument has been and remains demographics should not be a factor. I don't want whites benefiting from demographic privilege, and I don't want minorities benefiting from demographic privilege. Colorblind meritocracy should be the goal. How many times must the colorblind meritocracy be reiterated? So let's go back again. And Mark had retweeted this line. They said, yes, I would be against hiring a white person purely because they are a white person. Don't hire anyone, whites, blacks, or otherwise, on the basis of demographics. Colorblind meritocracy should be the goal, as I've repeatedly said over and over. Ironically, your statements prove the point that was being made with the We Woo for Mavericks campaign. And Mark said, now explain how far your demographics extend: religion, politics, ethnicity, geography. They said, I believe in a colorblind meritocracy. This means I'm against forms of hiring which undercut merit, including forms of hiring which cut out merited individuals over their group associations. I've answered plenty of your questions, so can you do one for me? The Title VII of this, if I sneeze, I like fill it in my nose. The Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Have you hired people on the basis of demographics on the belief that doing so better positioned your companies to succeed? Thank you. Because Mark's beginning to tell on himself. Okay, so he said, I've never hired anyone based exclusively on race, gender, and religion. I only ever hire the person that will put my business in the best position to succeed. And yes, race and gender can be part of the equation. I view diversity as a competitive advantage. Now, how would you propose finding organizations that give preference to white people? Why aren't you working as hard to show examples of white preference as you are DEI? You claim to abhor both. And this is my friend who retweeted Mark. He said, are you just going to say that out loud for real? Some of us notice how you just admitted to disregarding Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And they're correct. He is violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because you can't actually still discriminate against people on the basis of race. So if you have qualified candidates, and let's say that the thing that's going to put them over the edge is their race or religion or something like that, and that's why you hire them, that is still not correct. That is still not correct. It's not. You're not supposed to do that. Now, can we be honest and say, I'm sure that there's certainly a lot of places out there that are probably like, I wanted to hire a gay person, I wanted to hire this black person, I wanted to hire this person, or I didn't want to hire them because of this reason or whatever, but they're not going to be, I guess, dumb enough to tweet it out. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that is a violation. And so he got busted for that. by a commissioner. Let me pull up that tweet because I did like it. Let me Yeah, so the EEOC commissioner here, unfortunately, you're dead wrong. um as a rule, race/sex can't even be a motivating factor, nor a plus factor, tiebreaker, or a tipping point. It's important employers understand the ground rules here. So, Mark Cuban, uh, who many know, I mean, he owns the Mavericks. He's invested in a lot of companies, you know, tech and other stuff like that. A lot of people know him from Shark Tank. He's one of the sharks, and just outright admitting that he will use race and whatever as a motivating factor to hire people. Now, what's interesting about all this is if you are someone who believes that you should be able to do that, then do you want to get rid of the Civil Rights Act? Do you want to get rid of the Civil Rights Act? Because there's some people who would argue that we should get rid of the Civil Rights Act, but they kind of view it as a libertarian sort of perspective, that if a business wants to do whatever they want to do, then that should be up to them. And I know Rand Paul, he said, I mean, he's talked against it, but he's like, there are issues with it, but ultimately he didn't know which side he would kind of landed on at that particular time when they were voting on such a thing, because sometimes you still vote on things even though you don't think they're quite perfect or whatever. I don't I've read his interviews about it before, but some time ago. But they'll argue that the companies deserve the freedom to kind of decide what they want to do, you know. And Mark apparently thinks that he should be able to, and perhaps has, picked certain groups because he thought they needed, I don't know, the black woman there, etc. And you can believe that. However, it's still a violation of the Civil Rights Act. So, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is it still something that we need in a modern day or not? Because people, I suppose, would argue that we definitely needed it back then to keep people from discriminating, but people seem to really want to discriminate. So I just love that he got called out. He got called out. I don't see a reply from him under this commissioner's tweet, man. But he's being roasted for it, man. Um he's he's being roasted. And people are noticing that he's silent. People are noticing that he's silent. Someone X with the popcorn, her punching him out. Silent majority did this black guy face like yeah, quite a boo-boo from Mark Cuban there. You are you know, creator. Oh gosh, I didn't know that GIF was gonna be that violent. Yeah, not a good thing. Not a good thing. So yeah, just pick people who are the best for the job. You know, um, experience wise, etc. You can still like do different programs that are aimed to like some things are you get such disparities because of human. It could be education, it could be um just human nature of what men want to do versus what women want to do, and what kind of opportunities there are. Like when I growing up in Pontiac and stuff, they didn't have like a bunch of like CAD classes and stuff. My brother, he went to when he went to college, he was like, why am I so behind compared to everyone else? And then like midway through my like school career, we ended up moving to a more rural area, and we visited the high school. They have all these CAD classes. They have all these advanced CAD classes. So by the time these kids graduate, and it was a predominantly white school, they're far ahead of like the urban schools. So there are ways where you could look into like early sort of development to try to help get the sort of diversity that you want, but it's not a bad thing to just look at a room and just assume because you have some kind of disparate impact or whatever, and you have a lot of white people there, that it's inherently just a bad, immoral, not just a bad thing, it's like it's immoral, like people just can't take it. But no, you can't fix racism with more racism. There are other proactive measures that you can make, but the active measures that you should not take is you have two candidates in a room and you're picking one because they're black. You can't do that. I guess you can, but you'll probably open yourself up to some lawsuits if there's some interested takers there collecting evidence from screenshots. But it's still up. It's just tweets and stuff are still up there, so it's still up there. Anyway, let's move on. So Taylor Swift, a lot of people have been saying that she's a psyop, and like from her being at the NFL games, there are people saying that they're rigging who's winning the Super Bowl. And I saw people mention that I guess they've been saying it for a minute, that they want the outcome that they're going to have, which I don't, I'm not into sports really. The only one sports related kind of activity I watched was American Ninja Warrior. And I didn't mind like playing sports and stuff, but like I'd rather be a participant and a spectator, I guess. It's just not my thing. And so, but it was interesting, Lions getting as far as they did. And so I was refreshing Google, I guess, on and going to Twitter every so often on a Sunday night to see how they were going to do. And it seemed like they came out the gate strong, and then just couldn't handle the moment, that they didn't have good kickers or whatever for the goals or whatever, and the coaching was bad, and everybody just kind of fell apart during the third quarter, and that kind of seemed like a Lions thing and not really a ref thing. I know there was a situation where the refs messed up like a couple weeks ago, and they didn't. It is what it is, and sometimes the refs can have favorites. After the seemed that kind of way with like in basketball, for example, they had their favorite kind of teams, and the Pistons wasn't one of their favorite kind of teams, and so there can be biases that way. But I don't think that everyone's rigging the NFL. It's like the 49ers versus the Chiefs. Aren't they just good teams? Ron DeSantis did a video with his son asking who he thought he was going to go to the Super Bowl, and the kid like got it right. I'm not assuming it's because he's just predictive of the future. He probably is just aware, watching sports with his dad, and is aware that they're decent teams, or whatever, and that they were, and his predictions were accurate. I didn't know anyone who really believed that the Lions were going to make it to the Super Bowl. I know people hoped or whatever, and apparently Ford Field was really hyped after the second quarter, because after they started failing, everyone on Twitter is like, show Ford Field, because they wanted to see everybody upset and ticked off or whatever, because I don't know, maybe y'all was acting all kind of extra and stuff. But Taylor Swift is at the games because she's with a player, and They show her a lot. I imagine that they, um, this is just kind of what happens. She's a huge star, international star. She's a darling, and there are people who are excited to see her who don't normally watch football, so they're playing that up a bit. But as far as some kind of big psyop, I don't see that. It just kind of sounds like a lot. As far as people wanting to use her to help Joe Biden win, oh no doubt. Like, she did endorse him last time, correct? But just because she says something doesn't mean the people move. Like, I think the New York Times, if I'm not mistaken, wrote an article about all these people who went to go sign up to vote or whatever, or went to go visit a website after she did an Instagram post telling people to go vote, to register. But I think a lot of people visited, but there was like just some thousands of people, and she has millions of followers. That's not a huge deal. A bigger problem is going to be that there are some state parties that are so devastated that they're really dropping the ball as far as registrations and other things like that. Like Florida has like dominated Democrats, right? I saw a post about how many more Republicans are registering over Democrats. They're just killing it and have been killing it, right? And I'm just thinking, like, in Michigan, we're fighting over who's the chair. Like, that was a huge thing. And we're not raising money. And I'm not saying there's not other groups that are going out and registering people or whatever, but we have an infrastructure that just kind of is so subpar right now, especially compared to other years. We're very far behind, and it's not gonna it probably won't end well. Like, we'd be overcoming a lot of obstacles to actually go out and accomplish and win in November. And I don't want to get anyone down, but I just want to let you know that one of the swing states that Trump wants to win is far, 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 far behind in any sort of chance of victory. And we also have a Senate seat that's open, because Debbie Stabenow retired, and we're going to have a probably pretty messy primary because there's a lot of interested parties, interested in running. There's going to be a lot of money flowing in the primaries, and it's probably going to get kind of nasty. And so we're just behind the ball, I think. Behind the ball. It was something I didn't know, by the way. Hill Harper, who he's an actor. You might know him from probably a couple things, but he was on The Good Doctor. He's running as the Democrat candidate in Michigan, so that's interesting. We'll see how that goes. But just because you are a famous person doesn't mean that you're going to move the needle for a politician, and nor does it mean that you're going to win an election. Even if, like, there's rumors about them wanting to tout Joe Biden to Taylor Swift's concerts and all kinds of stuff. Hillary Clinton had like a big concert or whatever like Beyonce or whatever was there, and they put it on or whatever right before the 2016 election. And guess who was still the president? Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton had all those celebrities do the fight song, which, by the way, I think is kind of awful. I don't understand. I had malice when I heard the song every time, so I don't know why they thought that would make people go out and vote for Hillary Clinton. But it was cheesy. It was whatever. It wasn't like I don't know. Didn't work. She still didn't end up winning. Stacey Abrams, she had celebrities who were going to universities and door knocking. You had Katy Perry, I think Oprah, like all people were going on her behalf to try to get her to win. And she did not win in 2018. And she lost even more in 2022. So that didn't help her. Herschel Walker, being a big star, did not help him win in 2022 because he had a lot of baggage at the end of the day that people just kind of didn't relate to or like, even though the other candidate had some baggage and stuff or whatever, but he was still the incumbent. And at the end of the day, they thought he was probably going to be more competent at his job, I guess. But people just, weren't entirely enthused to vote for Herschel Walker given his background. So at the end of the day, you still have to be a good candidate. Dr. Oz, him being not an internet celebrity, a TV celebrity doctor, that might be why Trump wanted to endorse him, because they just thought that was going to push them over and win in Pennsylvania. But he was a carpetbagger, really. And Fetterman ended up winning, and Fetterman has surprised a lot of people as of late. He had a stroke and had some treatment, and I don't know. It seems like his brain was restarted or something. I don't know. A lot of people are giving him a lot of credit on stuff. I just maybe it's him, maybe it's his handlers or whatever, but that man wants to keep his spot. I think so. he might be there for a little while. But Dr. Oz did not win. Dr. Oz did not win. So just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean that you're going to pull it out and have some kind of big victory. Because in a lot of people, just because you have influence and money, like the biggest thing going for you is your name ID. But just because you're a famous person doesn't mean that people take you seriously. They might have a mentality of just shut up and sing, shut up and dance, shut up and whatever. That they ultimately don't think that you're kind of grounded in the real world, and you definitely haven't kind of sat down and really looked at the issues and so on, that you're prepared to do serious business, especially on the level of going to be in the Senate or going to work in the House. Like if working to be a local mayor or doing some state legislature stuff, that's one thing. But you want to go all the way to the top, writing off the fact that you're a celebrity, that might rub some people the wrong way. So just because you are a famous person doesn't mean you're going to win. Nor does it mean that you can go ahead and just sway elections. The type of people who can be swayed by these folks, we're probably going to vote the way they're going to vote before. Like someone who's a young person who's going to vote Democrat because Taylor Swift said so was probably not going to vote Republican. Maybe she convinced them to fill in a ballot and have someone pick it up and put it in a drop box. But but other than that, no, I don't think so. Maybe there are certain issues that they could bring to light that people will be like, oh, I didn't know about that, so now I'm motivated. But that's more of an issue thing. So in contrast, you're just gonna have to find a way to amplify that message to, the opposing demographic that will vote against and cancel that out to a degree. But Taylor Swift is not, Joe Biden is not a good president. He's a lot of people do not like him. His unfavorability is very high. His approval is very high. People are concerned about his level of competency. People are angry with him about, the enthusiastic young base of progressives are upset about his response with Gaza and Israel. And other folks are upset about the economy and the wall, not the wall, but the border, and all these other important things. So he's not in a good spot. The best thing he's got going for him is that a lot of people don't like Trump. That's the best thing going for him. But Taylor Swift, she came out, was mad about Marsha Blackburn, and tried to get her unseated or whatever, or was mad that she got elected, and was crying, saying that she doesn't care about women's issues and she doesn't care about women. And I found that to be so disgusting for Taylor to say that, because when they say they don't care about women, they mean specifically that these people don't agree with a woman being able to rip her baby into pieces. That's what they mean. If you don't believe that you should be able to take forceps and just tear the arms off, tear the legs off, crush the skull, take it out, scoop up what's left, then that means you don't care about women. They believe that if you can't take a vacuum and like vacuum out all the baby and then scrape up the pieces, then you don't care about women. I think women care about other things as well, like the economy and safety of their community, of their country, when they travel to different places, that they care about whether their sons are going to have to be drafted into some war. They care about inflation. They care about all sorts of things. All sorts of things. If all you care about is abortion, that's a pretty darn privileged position to be in. And perhaps you're a bit of a dingbat. I don't know, but to think that that's the thing that's gonna make you or break you on a particular candidate, on the right, I would, I would say it's, there are people on the right who that's a solid issue for them, but that's more of a philosophical human rights violation way to look at it. And I guess you could say, well, they feel like their human rights are being violated by not being able to tear a person from limb to limb. There are ways to not get pregnant, bruh. Certainly ways to not get pregnant. But people on the right are now, or at least from observation, are making the case that that's something that they need to abandon it and to be more of a secondary issue, which I think is not appropriate. But if you want a pro-life candidate who's someone like seriously pro-life, I don't think you might not find that on the main ticket for president this year. And you can say, oh, Trump's comments as of late seem more pro-choice, guys. I don't understand. If you're okay with like 90 to 99% of abortions happening, I wouldn't consider you pro-life anymore. But anyway, I don't think Taylor's going to seriously be able to move the needle with people. The true issue is, are Republicans going to be up to the moment, right? Biden is not at people are very unhappy with him, but are Republicans going to be able to say, I know you're unhappy and we can make the difference? I don't know about that, because people aren't too happy with the performance of Congress. Like for a while, we were in the whole like, oh gosh, we don't have a speaker debacle, and them ousting McCarthy and replacing, and for really not much change, it seemed like. People are annoyed with that. Again, I don't know about the infrastructure, about registrations and all that stuff. There's state parties that are really behind Michigan and in Arizona and and other places where I think Minnesota are just not up to snuff where we really need to be competitive. And RNC is not raising a lot of money. And let's be frank, a lot of money is probably going to go toward, that's going to be raised, is going to be toward Trump's legal bills and legal issues and stuff. And maybe that people are prepared to bite that bullet, and they're like, well, he's a nominee and he's being unfairly targeted, etc., blah, 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 and feel that it's totally acceptable to, I don't know, pay the 86 million or whatever from Gene Carroll, whatever, or at least with his other fees or whatever. That's no small number. Those aren't things to just, shrug off when they could be used toward hiring staff and, ads and all kinds of things. So I don't know if Republicans are going to be able to live up to the moment. We're pretty much in a bad spot. We're running behind. We're fighting from behind. And the only benefit to us is that Joe Biden is so bad. But a lot of people, I'm just going to warn you, they get used to the devil they know. They get used to bad situations. And some of them are just kind of like, we can tough it out. They feel like we can tough it out. And and they might I don't think this, I would be surprised if this upcoming election had anywhere near the sort of numbers that the last election had, because we know that you got 81 million, 79 million, whatever the numbers were for Trump and Biden, because of the mail-in ballots. Of course, you won't have the mail-in ballots and drop-off boxes in some places. They'll still be a thing in others, but you're not going to have the culture of, get the ballot turned in like you did in 2020, unless there's some kind of, I don't know, second spring of the pandemic that makes it so. I don't know how many people are willing to dive back into that right now, though, but I just don't see us having those kind of numbers, because the numbers were unprecedented because of the environment, not because of the candidates. It's not because 81 million people like Joe Biden so much, or all those many people like Trump. It wasn't even about that. It was just like the mode of how people were voting. We won't have that same kind of outlier situation happening again. And then you're gonna have people who aren't too enthused about either one. So I and you kind of see from the primaries, like in Iowa, turnout was way down, and I know the weather was bad, but it was way down. It was down in New Hampshire and stuff too. So I don't think you'll probably have anywhere near the level of enthusiasm. So the question is, who could just be a little bit more enthused? Because I'm pretty sure the Democrats, because Biden is raising crazy money though, so they will probably have a better ground game than Republicans. And that may ultimately screw us, especially if they're still using what avenues that they can with the drop boxes and so on. But I would imagine that aren't a lot of people who would be enthused to go out and vote for Biden himself. I think there'd be more people enthused to go out and vote for Trump. There will be people motivated to vote against Trump, sure. But people aren't going to have a lot of love for Joe. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But Taylor Swift moving the needle, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't doubt that people are using her or planning to use her, hoping that they can use her for politics. So what? You weren't going to make a vote red anyway. If they could be swayed by Taylor Swift, she's not going to come out with a compelling sort of plea that's going to move an informed voter to be like, you know what? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Anyway, moving on. If you're unfamiliar with this show, came on some years ago as a cartoon, and then they did a sequel, which a sequel wasn't as good, but people still like it. But it definitely wasn't as good. But Avatar: The Last Airbender was a great cartoon, pretty much a masterpiece as far as like American animation, which had like a love note to like Asian kind of cartoons like anime and stuff, but it is an American cartoon. And so there was the movie that M. Night Shyamalan did that was panned. Some people who never saw the show liked it fine. People who saw the film, who liked the TV show, hate it. I remember when they said they were making a live action movie, my sister like had put an alarm on her phone for the day that it would come out. And then I think it was just me and her. We went to the movie theaters to see it. And she immediately, like, we knew they were going to say the main character's name wrong and was going to call him Ong. And as soon as they said Ong, I felt like heat, like coming from her body. And so she was about to like go off like in the theater. And I just patted her hand and I said, we'll just keep it in. Let's just watch the movie and we'll talk about it later. So as soon as the credits started rolling, there was just fire. She was such an angry little person that day, but I didn't like it either. But the reasons why it went so wrong is it's pretty much a perfect show. It pretty much is. And M. Night Shyamalan had all these ideas about how he needed to change things or things that he thought made more sense. He didn't think it was right that of all the other nations had, like the water benders need some kind of water to water bend. So it's not right that the fire benders can just create their own fire. but they clearly take over everything, so they have an advantage, right? So doesn't it make sense they have an advantage, and that's part of how they could just like, beat everyone. So and then he's like, oh well, this name wouldn't be pronounced this way, we're going to pronounce it Ong. And such terrible ideas. His casting was really off. There was huge controversy about whitewashing characters. No, to be frank, and I talk about a lot of like casting choices and how they'll change people's races or whatever. I actually my thing is I want the characters to look like the characters. I don't really care that much if someone isn't like the exact race of the character. I didn't care that much about Noah Ringer. I think that was his name, or Noah Ryder or whatever. The person who played Aang, his first name's Noah, but I didn't like his performance. That was the problem. But I think a lot of the performances were M. Night Shyamalan's fault, because he had some good actors in the film. The two white kids who played the darkest kids on the show, they're talented actors. If you see, like, one of them played Jasper on Twilight. Twilight's not the best thing to pick out, but that's how a lot of people know. But the girl who played Katara, she was on Bates Motel and other stuff. It just wasn't a good movie. So anyway, I did not start the segment to spend all day talking about the terrible M. Night Shyamalan film. But my point is, this was someone who thought that they could make more sense out of something that was pretty much perfect, right? So Variety here reported that the Netflix's Avatar: Last Airbender series is toning down the sexism. We took out elements of how sexist Sokka was. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy, says Keela Wintio, the actress who plays Katara. He said, yeah, totally, adds Ian Owsley, who's playing Sokka. There are things that were redirected just because it might play a little differently in live action. So in the cartoon, yes, Sokka is sexist. These are young people, boys, girls. Boys are better than girls. You hear that, like, that rivalry all the time. Boys and girls. Boys are supposed to do this, girls are supposed to do that. And the point of like Sokka feeling that way is that he learns very quickly and is humbled. And he understands that women are capable of being warriors. And them editing that out or toning it down doesn't make sense to Avatar fans. There's a lot of people complaining about it. I've seen quite a few TikToks about it. Like, literally in the opening, like, of the show, of the series, Sokka and Katara are together, and he starts complaining about her navigation skills. He's like, I should have left a girl at home. And then she gets so angry, and she can water bend, so she can move water and stuff. And so she like accidentally starts like carving out this iceberg that happened to contain Aang. And her rant, she's complaining about how she's had to do so much since their mother died. She washes his socks and all this stuff. And she's like, and you go out and you play warrior. And so she ends up revealing Aang. So without Sokka being sexist in those moments, would they have a show? Would the Fire Nation still be, I suppose Sozin's Comet would have happened, and they would have, destroyed the Earth Kingdom and all that stuff. So they owe a great deal to young Sokka being sexist. And he had a girlfriend named Suki in the show, and she was a warrior, and a Kyoshi warrior. Kyoshi is one of the past avatars, and so they fight with these fans and other stuff like that. So she's like by far one of the best warriors on the show, and so he, tried to show his dominance, and they beat him. And so in that episode, he came back, and they're like, "Oh, you want to say some more stuff?" And I don't really want to play it because I don't want to get dinged while I'm talking to you guys, but he comes back humbly and he asks them to train him. And they're like, okay, well, you have to do all our traditions. So he has to put on the face paint and learn with the fan and stuff. And they teach him. And so what's interesting about Sokka, he goes through all this character development himself. And I was thinking about today, reflecting back on like Katara saying, oh, you just go off and you want to play warrior and stuff. He looks up to his father. He looks up to these men, and he was a little boy. He couldn't really do anything when their, mother was killed, the Fire Nation came, etc. And he's trying to fit into that role, but he's, clumsy, and he's, not the strongest or whatever. And he has to, he's really trying to fit into this role that he kind of quite doesn't get into. He ends up like fulfilling that eventually, much with his like different way of thinking, and his he's very adaptive with his fighting style, and he's very wise, and he's never really that like manly sort of go out there and punch you in the face kind of guy, but he finds a different way to be that warrior he's always wanted to be. And you really kind of don't see the fulfillment of that until like the third season, and he gets they're like, Sokka, we've all had our own masters who have taught us, and you need to find one yourself. And he finds someone who teaches him how to fight with the sword. So wanting to tone this important character development down is really silly. And even when he like had the moment with Suki and he learned how to fight and stuff, and they trained him and stuff, she still was like, I'm a warrior, but I'm still a girl, right? And she still liked girl things and still had girl emotions, and she ended up kissing Sokka. And so even though they had this thing about women are strong in this world, they're also, women still had a femininity to it, and they had a good balance of that, at least in the first show, whatever. But it's a lot of people are scratching their heads today, or kind of mind boggled about it. Now the show hasn't come out yet, so we don't know exactly how much they've toned down, but them feeling like they need to make alterations to the show that was pretty much perfect is crazy, because they also tackled sexism with his sister, not just having to deal with her brother, but when she went to the North Pole to train with I don't know I can't remember if it was North or the South, but which they took Aang to go train, the master who was there, he didn't want to train girls. They're like, no, girls learn how to heal and do other sorts of things, which she learned to do those things, was very good at it, but she wanted to fight. And so she ended up challenging the master. And so she proved herself. And so she took her training very seriously. And Aang was very immature and wasn't taking it as seriously. So by the time they left, he's like, okay, Sokka, I'm sorry, Katara has to teach you, Aang, because you didn't take your training seriously, but she was a diligent student. So this show just kind of showed how many ways that people are different, and their differences can come around and be a strength. so Sokka was never that typical sort of warrior guy, but he found out a way to be better. Like a lot of their good ideas as far as battle and strategy, there were times when they failed and stuff, but he was really, really an asset to the team in his own way, even though he was a non-bender. Everyone else could bend and had, like, I guess you consider the magical powers or whatever, but he didn't. And so even him being a non-bender and him kind of flexing a bit, he was projecting. They're all kids. It's so silly. It's so silly that they really felt like they had to tone that back, or at least now maybe they didn't tone it back that much, but they just felt like they had to say it to just make everyone know that, like, oh yeah, we toned it down because we're so good. And the show was pretty much perfect. The show was truly pretty much perfect, and you really didn't need to touch it. But here's the issue with folks, right? They don't know the difference between something that's prescriptive or descriptive. And just because something contains something, they're like, aha, they're making some kind of moral judgment about because this thing is in there. The sexism is in there. They're pushing the sexism. Or it's just a descriptive thing that happened with this character who, by the way, grew up and got over it. Um, but it's not like this is the how the world should be. You can't watch the show and be like, oh yes, the characters who are sexist, that's how the world's supposed to be. Again, they get humbled very fast. He gets humbled very fast in the show as far as that goes. So just because it's in there doesn't mean it's a good thing. And they tell this you how it's a bad thing and why people need to evolve and change. And it's not done in a woke sort of way. I don't, at least not an extraordinarily kind of woke way. Um, Maybe you could think it was more like progressive or whatever, but the issue with a lot of writing today is that there's no sort of even-handedness or gentleness with the message. It's like I want to bash you over the head with my point. So to make sure you really really get it, because my voice needs to roar. Or you could just kind of create a compelling story with a good message that we can all get because we're not stupid, and just weave the story together as opposed to being so desperate to tell a meaning rather than tell a story. People will do the whole descriptive versus prescriptive thing. Like, I mean, the Bible is an example. Like, I don't know, because there's examples of polygamy in it or whatever. That doesn't mean that it's prescriptive. It's just descriptive of what people will do. As a matter of fact, there's like stuff. The God says in the Bible, I don't want my kings to marry and take more than one wives because they will take up the traditions of their other wives, and it's going to cause a big mess, which ended up happening. Like Solomon, for example, is supposed to be the smartest guy ever, and then does all the things, all the bad things. He took a bunch of wives and stuff. So basically every situation you could think of, like multiple wives, there's someone who's doesn't get enough affection from their husband. This one's barren, this one's not, except, and so it's always a big mess. It's like the male and female come together, become one flesh. That's how it's supposed to be. But was there people who did not adhere to this? Sure, lots of people. That doesn't mean that that's the good design that we should adhere to today or something like that. No, there's a difference between narratives containing certain things, or in the authors saying that this is a good thing that we should aspire to. So just because you might write a character who has sexist qualities doesn't mean that that's a good thing. I write, well, I have 17 books that are published. Most of them are fiction. I write character. So some of my stuff is kind of on the will have a darker tint to it or whatever, but I don't glorify evil. So even though a character might do something in it, that's not me making some kind of commentary on me approving the thing. And usually you will see in the story at some point that the thing is a bad thing. You can, through, I don't know, someone might verbally say it in commentary or something, but usually you will see through the evolution of the certain actions that was a bad thing that happened. The repercussions of that will show that was a bad thing that happened. So no one is confused about Avatar: The Last Airbender, about Sokka, and his sexism, thinking like, oh, sexism is a good thing. Like, nobody gets that impression. You don't need to curb it for live action so he's more likable or something. Everybody, I don't know anyone who's ever said they don't like Sokka. There's people who will say they don't like Katara. A bunch of people say they don't like Korra, but that's the sequel series or whatever. But some people might say Aang's a little too immature or whatever, but still maybe not dislike him. I'm not aware of anyone disliking Sokka, and even with him being maybe a bit still more on the sexist side, all the ladies still really like Sokka. He's still good with the ladies. So anyway, this is really bizarre, and just it doesn't seriously, the show doesn't need your help in that way. It's a really good show. I don't know how it'll ultimately be on Netflix. I'm not I don't know if I will or won't give it a shot, to be frank, but the cartoon was amazing. It was something I really enjoyed. Um and it's so sad the live action was terrible and my sister had to be so angry about it. We went to the theaters to see it, but you know, maybe people will get their good adaptation after all. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Someone said next version will be the last gender bender. Perhaps. Well, they ended Korra, Legend of Korra, and I so loved Korra and Mako. Um, she ended up being a lesbian or bisexual, I guess, with Asami. And then they went back and did a story, not on cartoon, but in the comics and stuff. I think Kyoshi's gay and stuff. So at one point the show got taken off. They were playing it like on Nickelodeon on TV, The Legend of Korra, and they were also playing it like you go watch it digitally. And then all of a sudden you could only just watch it on, you know, online. And then all of a sudden it was like, I think they dropped a bunch of them. So like at once, like a batch. And I think they probably weren't ready to put their lesbian stuff on TV, which they barely even like kind of hinted to at the end of the show because they went off together in the like the spirit world or whatever. And maybe they kissed or they held hands or whatever, but it was like a bunch of glowing lights, so you couldn't really see it. So um they felt like they did something brave but didn't really go the distance on it, I guess. But um there was I guess some fans who wanted it, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I definitely didn't feel like the chemistry like you felt it with her and Mako. But whatever. I didn't like, you know, Cora wasn't the best herself. So anyway, thank you guys. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. You guys can find my books on Amazon. Just search my name, Christina L. Barr. But if you go to blacktnews.com, go to the merchandise page, you'll be able to see a link that'll take you over to my website where you can check out my stuff. You guys can check out different merch that's available as well, like mugs and t-shirts and so on. So go ahead and check stuff out at the site. If you want to support, you guys can leave a donation on the website. Thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.